Hello, everyone, and welcome to Leaders of Today, Teens to Titans. Today, I want to introduce you to my special guest, Melissa Gilbo, a dynamic entrepreneur who saw a need for others like her and set off to blaze an incredible trail for female entrepreneurs to network authentically. She is the co founder and CEO of Women's Business League, WBL, and the founder of Melissa Gilbo Consulting. Our discussion will focus on how she relied on her vision and trusted her intuition to build a national brand empowering business owners to reach their full potential. So without further ado, let's jump right into our conversation. You're listening to Today's Leaders, from Teens to Titans. Hi, I'm Lorraine Connell, a teen leadership coach. I transitioned from teaching chemistry to coaching teens in leadership, helping them realize they can do hard things. We've often believed that leadership is an innate trait, but it's actually a skill that you build and improve. On this show, you'll meet today's leaders who share their teenage experiences, revealing how they developed confidence, direction, and the tools to become the leaders they are now. You'll discover how you or the teens in your life have the potential to become confident leaders, even if it doesn't seem possible. Welcome, Melissa.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be with you, Lorraine. I've been looking forward to this pretty much all week. So yeah, I'm ready to dive in. I'm here for it all. So let's get started.
Are you ready to go back to teenage Melissa years and explore that experience a little bit?
Sure. Let's do
Awesome.
it.
So, as I am a teen leadership coach, and
Mhm.
I wanted to empower teens to see themselves as leaders, but that's often one of the biggest hurdle, even for us as adults. Can you describe yourself as a teen and share if you saw yourself becoming the leader you are today?
Oh, what a powerful question. I had a feeling we'd go back in time to Melissa Gilbo, actually Melissa Nato at that point, my maiden name. I'm going to share a story with you. I don't think I've ever shared this with anybody. It was my freshman year of high school. And I knew I wanted to do something in terms of like getting involved, getting out there in the community, somehow being a part of something, because in my early years, I really wasn't. I wasn't a part of like a sports community or anything like that. Like I did a lot at home. I had some great friends, but it wasn't until I hit high school that I saw the cheerleading announcements being posted for tryouts. And something inside of me, I don't know what it was, but I was like, you know what? I'm going to try out. I'm this little freshman. I'm going to try it. And back then, I'm dating myself, that there was no internet or email. So they literally would post the list on the wall, right?
Yes.
And you would have, do you remember? Like you'd have to go to the gym and look at the wall on the list. And I wasn't on the list. My name wasn't there. And I remember what that felt like. It crushed me. I wanted it so bad. And it was I think it was after school that day, I ended up seeing the coach and she's like, Melissa, I have something exciting to share with you. Although you didn't make the team, I want you to serve as an alternate for the squad. And I was like, all right. Although I didn't make the team, I was excited to at least be able to be a part of this. Right. And I'm going to tell you, I think she went out that weekend to like Caldor or Ames and bought an extra sweater. Back then, I don't know, we were wearing sweaters for uniforms. It did not match. It was this awful looking blue sweater with these white polka dots all over it. It was like this V-neck in the front, V-neck in the back. Did not fit me, but I probably wore it. I showed up to all the practices. I wasn't a part of the halftime show or the sideline, but I showed up wearing that horrible sweater, all the practices, all the games. And there was something to be said about wanting something so bad and showing up. And everybody knew I was an alternate. because I had this sweater on that wasn't a part of the group, and I didn't care. I didn't care that I stood out or didn't get to participate. But I think what the coach saw in me was the hard work, the determination, the passion. And I'm going to tell you, like, the next season, I made the team. I really did. And I became one of their top flyers and I was in everything. And from there, I think that's where I started gaining my confidence as a leader. Being in community with other people is so incredibly important. And if our listeners are hearing this one message is that it's lonely out there, it's hard. But if you can find something, whether it's band or music, an art class, volunteering in your community for a nonprofit brings you around people that are going to see you and you're going to become visible, you're going to start gaining some confidence. So I hope I kind of painted a little bit of a vision as to like where I started to get my confidence. And it wasn't until later on that I got some leadership confidence, but I'll stop there.
That story resonated a lot with me. Number one, I also was trying out for a team and I got cut. And that feeling of not being part of something still sticks with me. I also connected with the idea of not really feeling like I belonged anywhere. And I feel like I can relate with you because you're a super connector. I feel like my super connection power has come from that feeling of not being included and not finding a place and wanting no one else to feel that way. So does that resonate with you that superpower came from that feeling?
You just hit my heart. Like I have goosebumps right now. And I know it's not just us, Lorraine. Like it's not just the two of us feeling this. There's a world of people out there that have a similar story to what we just shared. And I think the quote that I shared with you was, you can't let the hards harden you. I don't ever want a hard to take you down, right? It's a part of life. It's a part of living and who we are. And I really want the message to be, don't let the hard harden you, but learn from what those hards can do for you. Grow from there, right? So I think that's where the leadership started, was in that moment of, okay, I do belong here somewhere. The consistency of showing up started building my confidence. And then from there, I ended up being captain my junior year into my senior year, which was incredible. And from there, I ended up coaching. I coached later on in my life. But yeah, so that leadership really comes from showing up, the confidence, being in community. It's all of those things together, but it's that feeling of being left out. And I think that's really the moment. I think you're right. I never really looked that deep.
Yeah. And I actually was working with a teen not that long ago on her speech to be a president for freshman year. And I asked her, I said, do you think you could sit at a different table at lunchtime every day? Think of the power of that kind of connection at that age, right? This girl who's applying to be the freshman class president is sitting at my table. I mean, that was her mission. She wanted to build community. And I said, here's a great way to do that. And I work with teens a lot and I ask them to do that kind of challenge.
What a great idea.
So scary for them. And I think back to being my freshman and your freshman and how we're just looking for that connection. We're looking for somebody to belong next to, with, in community. And I truly love the advice that you said that it doesn't have to be a sport. It doesn't have to be arts. It could be volunteering.
Absolutely. I actually want to take that challenge that you just shared. I love that about sitting at different tables that's ninth grade.
Yeah.
I actually think adults should do that as well.
100%.
Right?
Yes.
So through WBL, my whole heart is the connection. WBL is built on the fact of relationship building. It's about people first. It's about taking the time to sit down across from one another and have a real conversation with somebody and get to learn who they are. Right. And it's not like a text or a Snapchat, or I'm really old school in terms of bringing it back to the way we used to connect. And I think a couple generations are missing that connectivity because of technology. I do know some adults that it's hard to walk into a room of people you don't know, right? It's hard to put yourself out there and have these conversations. But I think for our generation, we had that because we didn't have the internet. We didn't have phones. Like we had to talk to people. But that's where your confidence starts building, right? Like being able to call and order a pizza over the phone. Like some students have trouble with that.
Yes.
So I love the fact that you had that freshman do that. I think it's so important, the work you're doing for these teens. It's a whole nother generation coming up, and we need to be able to instill this confidence, connectivity, community in the youth that is coming up. So congrats for the work you're doing. I do know in my heart that you are making a difference. You're changing the lives of these kiddos for the future.
And it's exciting. You can see that ripple happening right at the beginning. And it was funny that you brought up the adults, because one of the other things that I often see and share with teens is I say, do you think that I'm nervous when I'm up here talking to you? And they're like, no. And I was like, that's because you can't see what's happening inside my head. You can't see what's happening inside of me. I'm nervous, but nobody knows that. And so when I sort of reveal that piece of information to them, it makes them feel a little less scared about putting their answer out there. Because I think a lot of times, and myself included, like I didn't know what networking was when I found WBL. I really didn't. And I didn't think I would be good at it at all. And I still have to psych myself up before I go to a networking meeting. But when I do that, when I step outside and I go to a different lunchroom and I meet new people, the rewards are boundless and forever. So I think I'd love for you to share how you came to the authenticness of networking with WBL. That I think is really powerful.
Yeah. So the short version is I grew up in the insurance world for over 20 years. I was in the insurance space, both corporate. So I've been on the corporate side and an agency side. And I knew how powerful networking and being in community and meeting people was. So I did all the things, right? I would show up very nervous, walking through those doors, not knowing anybody, but I still put myself out there. But something was missing all along, and I couldn't really figure out what it was until I met Amy and we started talking about how hard it is out there in the real world to build a business, run a family, wear all the hats, be a mom, a friend, a wife, all the things. And it was two strangers that just had this conversation of vulnerability of how can we help one another. And we started introducing each other to more people. So organically, it became a meeting every other week. And you know what? The cool thing as I look back now is that we were showing up for each other, not because we had to, but because we wanted to. And that's where I realized what was missing all along was the relationship piece of it. Like we were sitting around that table, getting to know each other and genuinely wanting to help one another. And that's when this whole notion of Women's Business League was born. So even like in that moment for the listeners, another really cool opportunity is to think about is that there are opportunities everywhere, right? And I think we just have to be confident enough to know and to see those opportunities and to be brave enough to act on it, right? So there's that bravery piece as well. But yeah, and then all of a sudden, this table was built that we wanted to sit around. So relationships, community is what built WBL. So that's the heart and the mission is to really get to know people first, and then the business will come.
And do you think that there's a way to tie in what we're doing in our networking organizations into schools? I think from our conversation at the beginning, where we were talking about that piece of belonging, finding community, how might we share this knowledge that we have found to be so powerful in WBL with the teens in high school who are so worried about who their friends are, who's dating who's on what team? Like, how do we shift that mindset of I'm only part of this group, right? And I think I actually interviewed somebody who was like, I didn't know that I could be an athlete and an artist and a smart student. I thought I had to be just one.
Ooh. And you know what? Just to segue a little bit, like Amy and I, the give back is so big in WBL. So we are taking what we're doing with WBL with adults and educating the youth. But we're only like a snippet. So like we've spoken at the UNH entrepreneur class, I think 3 years in a row. We've been to Boston College 4 years in a row, talking to their Women Innovation Networking series. So we really are trying to spread what we're doing into the youth. And from that, we've learned so much. It's eye-opening for them. They never knew that this networking thing was a thing until somebody came in and told them. And I'm going to tell you, your network starts from grade school. Like your network starts with your teachers, with your coaches, with your bosses, with your babysitting parents. Like that is when your network really is starting to happen. And I don't think we realize that at such a young age. I mean, I still have relationships with some of my grade school teachers. I don't know if you do, but they made such an impact on my life. I think back to some of the things they said and the lessons they shared. So being able to keep those relationships, I think is very powerful into your adult life, and being in community and utilizing your network. And like you said, it doesn't have to be your team.
Right.
Your network encompasses your team, your teachers, your boss. Yeah, all of it. It's very powerful at such a young age.
Yeah, I mean, I do this activity with the students that I work with where they create their personal web. I just now thought of that piece of like, okay, who is in your network and who brings more people in? Let's foster that relationship. So, like, not only using the personal web
I love
for
that.
them to understand who and how their relationships are as teenagers. Some relationships can be really toxic and some we don't recognize as being really great for us. And so this personal web activity allows them to analyze the different relationships in their life. But now I can take it to one further level where I can talk about this personal web, this is your network. And let's do that personal web every 2 years and see how your network changes, how it grows, and even add little like branches off to
That is so
build it.
cool.
Yes.
I love that. Again, we could all do that as adults. I
We
mean,
absolutely could.
a lot of this is the same, whether you're talking to the youth or the adults. We all need to learn this, right? We all need the reminder. I think we kind of know it, but we need that reminder in these like really valuable, tangible educational pieces to put it into practice.
Yeah. And I don't know if you can remember having conversations with your boys when they were younger about certain friendships, right? And you knew that these relationships were probably not healthy for them, but like they didn't want to hear that from me. They didn't want to hear that from you. They needed to see it. And so that's what the personal web does. It puts it on paper and they like can't ignore that friend who's like really taking them down.
Yeah.
And I don't tell them that they have to do anything about it. But once they know, now that's the power that they can do or choose to do something with it.
Yeah. Oh, this is so good.
Yes. Well, and as you were talking and you were alluding to working with some of these college students, I was listening I think it was actually Mel Robbins' podcast not that long ago. She dropped her son off at college and she gave 7 things she wished she knew in college. And one of them is about feeling included. And when you are just coming to college, you have this belief and perception that everybody is connected. Everybody already has friends, and you're the only one who is alone. And her advice was, and I love this so much because I have a 13-year-old who's like, I don't have any friends. So this advice transfers all ages. If you want to feel included, include other people. And so even if you feel like the people who are walking together to lunch are already friends, invite them into your group, right? And nobody is going to say no if you're like, hey, do you want to join me for lunch? Rather than, hey, can I join you? Right.
Yeah.
So it's just this subtle switch. And it really made me think about how the students that you're talking to about network don't realize that they can build their network by just reaching out and saying, hey, do you want to join me here?
That is so valuable. And I think about like one of the ways that we talk about even adults being nervous walking into a networking environment, right? And one of the ways that you can mitigate that feeling is to be the super connector, right? Like if you know that you're going to be so nervous, you can be the facilitator, the one that enters in the room and starts connecting people, right? If you feel better, like having a job to do almost, it takes that nervousness and that pressure off of you of waiting for somebody to come to you. But if you're the one going and saying, oh my gosh, I just met this person, you both should meet. Now you're building your network. They're seeing you as a leader and they want to know who you are. And that was built out of pure nervousness, right? So those things are tools and tricks that I use all the time because I always am nervous walking into a room. And I am here as the CEO of Women's Business League, a national networking community.
Right.
Like, I think people just need to hear that behind like this name tag, behind the CEO, I don't care about any of that. I really don't. And when I tell them that I am just as nervous standing behind a microphone in front of everybody, they're like, what? You?
Dumbfounded. Right.
Dumbfounded.
Exactly.
But like you said earlier, I share that all the time. You know, we were just at the summer soiree and I think there was 150 in the room and I had to stand in front of them with a microphone and say something. And I was so nervous. And to be able to share that with people, I think it's relatable. I think it's very vulnerable too, but it eases them in a way to let them know like it's hard, but it's doable, right?
Yeah.
Like you can achieve things that are outside of your comfort zone. It's not easy, but there is such a reward on the other side of doing it. So yeah, I mean, there you go. I'm very nervous.
And I don't think if you had asked me, do you think that Melissa is nervous up there? I would say absolutely not. This is her mojo. This is what she loves to do. No, we don't know what we don't know. I bet a bunch of people who go up there and do public speaking, TED Talks, they're nervous and they're just like you and I.
That's
And
right.
I think it's really, really important for listeners. And if you have teens in your life, to share that or play this episode for a teenager to know that there are so many people out there doing things that you think have natural abilities that have worked really hard.
Yeah, that is not a natural ability, a superpower. I've always been nervous of public speaking, you know, right from high school. I remember being sick if I had to present that day. Yeah, and here I am speaking in front of crowds, but there's things that I'm really good at and that are natural to me and parts of it that are not natural, but those parts are the things that we need to work on, right? And not everybody is good at everything. And if you meet somebody that tells you that, they're not telling you the truth. A lot of teens, when we were going into those colleges, we would survey them before we went in, like wondering, what is it that you want to talk about? Like, I
Mm,
don't want to come in here and talk at you. I want to talk with you. I want to answer the questions that you most are wanting to hear, like real life lessons. And the surprising thing that came up time and time again was confidence.
mm-hmm.
Are you finding that in your line of work?
Yeah. When I share the two things, like leadership is a skill that you build and confidence is a skill that you build. When I share that with people and they understand that a skill is something that you get better at, it diffuses the need to be great at it right from the start. And it was this past week where we had a networking, our WBL chapter in Dover, where one of the women said a challenge that she's struggling with is stepping into a role where she is the leader and she has to share and communicate with people in front of all of them. And she says it just makes her so sick. And she was like, how do I build that skill? And I said, you just identified it's a skill that you build. So don't expect that you're going to be natural at it the very first time you do it, or even the 100th time you do it.
Great advice. You're going to have to replay that moment for the listeners. They get to hear that on repeat, you know?
Yes.
Like, I don't have an MBA. I don't have a master's degree, right? We built WBL based on passion and a vision, right? Based on the need. We're changing people's lives every day, the work we're doing. So that really gets me excited. It gets me out of bed every day. And I learned a lot. Like, I didn't start this business knowing everything, but I know myself that I am a hard worker and I'll figure it out. Right. So I think that scares a lot of people jumping into something, but you're going to figure it out. If it's something you're truly aligned with and you're passionate about, you're not going to let it fail. You're going to learn. So I think that's another important message for people to hear is that you don't have to know everything. You really don't.
Well, and I almost want you to talk a little bit about the difference between failing and making mistakes, because so often that belief that if we make a mistake, this vision is going to fail. And so, how did you overcome that fear? And how did you persevere when I'm going to ask, did big mistakes happen when you guys were launching WBL and getting it from a little table to this national brand?
Yeah, mistakes happen. Entrepreneurship and leadership is not a straight path. It is this wiggly, windy road. And I wish somebody had told me that in the beginning. Goodness. But with every moment or every setback, every failure, like I said, with the hards, there's those learning moments and those learning opportunities to know that giving up is not an option. It's not, right? Like if there's a hard or a failure, acknowledge it and move on. There's always a plan B, always. And I think you have to really know that you can activate plan B in a moment. There's always another option. So you take what you've learned in the failure, in the hard, and we're really good about listening and gaining feedback and thoughts from others. So for WBL, it's reaching back down to our members and asking them, what is it that you want? What are you looking for? And being able to pivot and react in a different way. And most often, it's better
Yes.
than what it was supposed to be, right?
Yeah. Oh, I love that piece right there, because often we're so afraid of the mistake that we're going to lead to a failure that we don't even try. But if we go and we make that mistake, what we're going to find is that we find a better version.
Yes.
That one we should put on repeat for people. Good conversation. There's so many nuggets
I know.
of how to become, and that led me to the next nugget is you said feedback, and feedback made me think of accountability and how hard it is to take accountability when you make a mistake. But what are the repercussions when we don't take accountability?
I always say that all feedback is good, bad, ugly, positive, and it's necessary. You should always be asking for feedback, whether that's through surveys or having, a cup of coffee with somebody. I'm going to tell you right now that WBL was built on feedback. The whole entire value and the educational moments all came from listening to members. We didn't have it all figured out in the beginning. We really didn't. We knew that this was needed and very important. We had the heart, the vision, the passion, the mission, but it was really leaning on conversations and feedback surveys that built what is now a national brand. So you do have to lean in. You can't think that you always have it all figured out as a leader, right? Like it's not about us. It's not about me. And it's never been about me. And I will never let it be about me. It's about the work you're doing, the impact you're making, and the people that you're touching. And the work you're doing is changing lives, right? So as a leader for me, like that is very important. It's not ever going to be about the CEO or who's that.
What would you say to a teenager about getting bad feedback or like feedback that's hurtful? Because I think often as young teens and then we carry it into our adulthood, maybe we've gotten bad feedback or we've gotten feedback that was hurtful. And so now we avoid feedback. So is there some advice that you might share?
Oh, wow. This is a very powerful question because we're all carrying something, probably many things from our past. Again, I think this is a learned skill. It's hard. It is hard, right? But now as an adult and I look at feedback is I try to separate the feelings from the facts.
Ooh.
And I even lead my team this way, like WBL and even the chapter leaders. And you probably heard me say that before, but we have to operate from the facts and try as hard as we can to remove the feelings, that it's not personal. And I'm talking like in a business setting. So it might not relate as well to teenagers, but it can. Like if it's in a sports community or you're in the music room or you're in the art studio and you receive a piece of feedback, I want you to take it as not personal.
Yeah.
As hard as that is, and to really just think about the facts and take those facts and move forward with them and let it go. Like you have to be able to keep moving forward and not carry that personal with you. And again, a lot of times it becomes better and better the more feedback you get. If you have the ability to not take it so personal that it takes you down.
Yeah, that's great advice because I think as a teenager, we're all about feelings, right? So, like, you've got to understand that there are two pieces to that puzzle of feedback. And if you focus in on just the feelings, it's going to take you down.
It's going to take you down.
And you pull that feeling out and try and see the fact. And I think as mothers, that's really helpful advice to give to our own kids. For me, I'm thinking about the challenges that my teens have and giving them that, like, hey, where are the facts in that piece of feedback? And if they can't like discern it, narrow it down with them and try and help them build that skill. Like you said, it's another learned skill.
And even like communication, right? So when you are in that space, we're so technology based right now that it's so easy to pick up your phone and hit reply on the text message. Like you have to sit with that before you communicate it back or reply. And then the reply becomes completely factual. I always say when you are replying, you're going to remove the feelings from your message. So you're going to tend to do draft 1 and it's going to be all feelings, right? Then you're going to sit with it and do draft 2 and start moving out like the feelings and really start to communicate factually. And the message hits way better because it doesn't become this like drama. And again, you all know I don't do drama. Like I will shut it down. So this is a very learned skill of mine. And it's those boundary settings too. Like people know I don't tolerate that. But again, you're not going to have that in high school. It's so hard.
but knowing that it's something that you're working on and working towards, and know that you're not going to be as good as the people who aren't able to take the feedback with emotion at the first time. Definitely there are people who are better, just like in basketball, right? There are kids who are naturally good at basketball and others, me, who are not. And what do we do if we want to get better? We hire a coach, we join a team, we practice, we try those skills out, and we rinse and repeat. Same with leadership, same with communication, same with confidence, same with feedback.
That's right.
Once we identify what our skills, then it doesn't feel so like I'm not good at that.
Right. And again, we're not good at all of those things together, right? You might be good at 2 or 3 of them naturally, and then you need to work here. That's another great lesson plan, is really focusing on where your strengths are and where the weaknesses lie.
Yeah, what do they call them? SWOT?
What?
Strengths?
Opportunity, something.
But yeah, they teach us that in business class if you take business class. But like you, I did not go to business school. So we're all just figuring it out, and we surround ourselves with a great network. And that is the solution to many of our challenges.
It really is. Building the A team around you is something that we should all do. Having somebody to lean on for certain things. And I also think as adults, it might start from youth, but I find that we don't really ask for what we need, and that it's okay to ask for help. I don't know where that broke, but in youth, all the way up to adulthood, like, let's really start asking for help. And we can't do this alone.
And it's not a weakness. I think that's where in our minds, if I'm asking for help, I'm admitting that I can't do.
That's
And
right.
that then makes me weak. And so I think you're right. It's asking for help is actually a strength.
I believe that 100%.
Let my listeners know where to find you, how to find WBL, and I will make sure everything is in the show notes. But where do you want people to connect with you?
First, it's WBL. So Women's Business League. Our website is a great landing spot for learning more about who we are, our education, events that we have coming up. So it's womensbusinessleague.com. We love Instagram and Facebook, but LinkedIn is really where it's at. So you can find us on those platforms. And Melissa Gilbo, me personally, I love LinkedIn as well. So Melissa Gilbo over on LinkedIn. And yeah, Instagram's kind of fun over there too, but LinkedIn is definitely a platform I love.
That's awesome. I am so grateful for our conversation. I hope my listeners had their notebooks out after the first piece of advice that we gave them and jotted down so many others.
This was so incredible. I mean, it took me down a road and all these nuggets really emerged, very powerful, and some things in there that I wish I had heard or known about when I was in high school, I think really would have stuck with me, or at least I knew. Like, we think they know, but do they? So I think this is a really powerful reminder of some of these things in terms of leadership, confidence, all the things that adulthood brings, right?
Yeah. And I also think, for me, it was going back and experiencing, wow, all of these things that I've learned along the way. I didn't know that I did that. It just, now I have them, but I didn't think about where they came from and how I acquired them. So I think that's really beneficial for us as the current leaders to think about, how did we get here? Are you ready to help the young people in your life unlock their inner strength and step confidently into leadership? The new workbook from Peers Not Fears, Your Voice Matters, Uncovering Your Unique Leadership. It's designed to help teens see the leader in themselves, step by step. It's not just a workbook. It's the first step towards a ripple effect that could change lives. Let's turn today's teens into tomorrow's titans. Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Leaders of Today, Teens to Titans. If you found this episode helpful, please subscribe, leave a review, and share it with other parents who might benefit from this conversation. Together, we can support our teens in building healthy, positive relationships and become leaders of tomorrow. Until next time, I'm Lorraine Connell, and this is Leaders of Today, Teens to Titans.